what can Fasset do for me as a layman?
The best way to think about it is that we're a globally connected digital bank for investing. And our belief, very fundamentally, is that building wealth is a universal right. Even when we're hiring in Pakistan, it's hard to find someone who is not skeptical. They'll be the most talented person ever. And it's exactly what you said. There's a guy in Silicon Valley using AI that's going to put 8 hours a day. And there's going to be a guy in Islamabad here putting 8 hours a day. But the only difference is that guy from day one has thought, I'm going to spend this 8 hours a day and I'm going to make the number one product that the world has ever seen.
Investing, other than real estate, because they have a halal haram conversation that comes up quite often.
So for example, in Pakistan's case, there's a government mandate 2027, everything is to be Sharia compliant Islamic. But part of that government mandate and the definition of Islamic finance should be that as we go Islamic, we force the elites, those people who have disposable income, to take more risk.
Okay. So I have, $100 for argument's sake.
Right. So if you have $100 and you know that you're making even $5 a month for the next 12 months, this opportunity didn't always exist for people in a country like Pakistan or in a country like Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pakistani. We have a very, very interesting guest today from Berkeley and Harvard. He is the co-founder and CEO of Fasset, Mohammad Raafi Hossain. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And you have a very glittering career that I'd like to discuss. But I want to start with this. Firstly, explain to me a little bit about Fasset. And the reason that I'm asking this is there are two bits of this conversation. One is technology related, and then the other bit is a lot of us in Pakistan want to make money and we want to sort of invest. Now, historically, as I'm sure you're aware, Pakistan is if you want to invest in Pakistan, you buy real estate, and that's about it. Gold. People buy gold here. That's right. That's another one. That's right. And that too in its slab, original, jeweler format, right? What can Fasset do for me as a layman, just a regular dude in Pakistan?
It's a great question. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I would say Fasset, the best way to think about it is that we're a globally connected digital bank for investing.
Okay.
Right. So in one line, that's what we're here for. And specifically, we're tailored for the young person who lives in an emerging market like Pakistan to be able to access investments that are not always tied to the local economy or to the local currency.
Right.
And our belief, very fundamentally, is that building wealth is a universal right. So it shouldn't matter what your passport is. It shouldn't matter what your initial bank balance is. Everyone should have access to the same investment opportunities now that we're in the year 2025.
Right.
Now, that sounds like a simple thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you're someone in Pakistan specifically, you don't always get access to, you can buy a Apple iPhone.
But I can't buy the stock.
You can't buy the stock.
Yeah.
So on one hand, Pakistanis on an aggregate basis are probably one of the world's top 20, 25 purchasers of Apple products, but they don't get to partake in the upside of Apple.
Right.
And even if you double click on it a bit more, there is a few people here who probably have rights to importing Apple products, but the average consumer still doesn't get upside to because of capital controls.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
So let's start with the markets in the United States, right? Is right now Trump and everything that's going on and the chaos, is this a recession cycle? Is this a cycle of, the markets will come back up and they will sort of, recover, and this is why Pakistani, because, whatever it is, let's say our dispensable income is, a dollar is worth something here, right? It may not be in other parts of the world, but over here, we don't have that much money. Now, you're telling me, okay, I have a certain amount of money. I can put it into, through your application into the markets in the United States. Before I even get to how we can do that and what else you can do, the first question is this the end of times? Is this a bad time? Is this a good time? Some people are like, oh, it's, always a good time when the markets go down, 2008, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are certain people who are like, no, this is the end of the kingdom of the United States of America. So what is it?
It's a great question. I would say I was actually in university in 2008, 2 years to go to graduate.
Right.
And that was the worst time for me because I have no disposable income. Markets tank. Recovery is a long process, as we ended up seeing. No jobs in the market for me to even be able to put some sort of savings together. So it really depends on who you are. Now, if you're someone in this country who is between 25 to 40 years old, this is great. It's a great opportunity.
Why?
Because really you're going back to prices that are maybe we're headed to a trajectory that you're going to be able to buy certain assets at 2019, 2020 prices. And I don't think anyone expected it to come this fast so soon. So when there's fear and greed in the market, when there's fear in the market, that is the opportunity for someone who is building their wealth, who is early on in their journey, to kind of buy in and hold over the long term. So if you're 60 years old, this is a bad time for you because you don't have much time left to go. But if you're 25 to 40 and your goal, and this is a fundamental goal that I hope more young people have, is that my goal is to build wealth over the next 15 years, then this is a great time to start, right? Because in the next 15 years, as we've seen over the last 15, 30 years, you're going to come out in the green no matter what happens.
And if I asked you, okay, fine, let's say that there is an opportunity. Crypto is also, not doing too well right now. There was a certain surge after the president came into power, and then there's a certain dip that's happening right now. So I have, $100 for argument's sake. And now I don't have more than that, so I can't just diversify into multiple things. Or should I diversify into multiple things? Where should I put my money?
You should always diversify, even if you have $1. 100%. Diversification is the key. Long-term plan is the key, and discipline is the key. Right.
Okay.
So if you have $100 and you know that you're making even $5 a month for the next 12 months, there should be a plan and there should be an understanding that, look, I am not going to put everything in one ship hoping to get rich. I'm going to put everything diversified intelligently, and in 10 years, I will have enough for my household, for my kids' future, to take care of my parents, etc.
Right.
And to be fair, this opportunity didn't always exist for people in a country like Pakistan or in a country like Bangladesh, because historically, before the advent of crypto, most people who are not elites are forced to invest in local currency, in local market.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you are at the mercy of decision makers for this economy, and you can't diversify, right? So that then land is your best, buying a plot, buying a
Agreed. But I have a sort of, I wouldn't say patriotic question, just a question that I've been told my whole life, right? So if all of us take our wealth, however little or however big it might be, and we move it abroad, don't we by default tank the local / not only economy, but the market? So for example, there's a PSX trend that's picking up. And people are starting to finally, retail investors, right? I think there's only 400, 500 or 600,000. I don't know the exact number, but it's a small number. But it's an increasing number, right? Now, if I'm supposed to believe that Pakistan has a future, and I'm supposed to live here, and I'm supposed to work here, and I'm supposed to put in my effort here, but then I take all of my savings and I take that abroad, does that not sort of imbalance or unbalance the local market? And if we're all doing it via, say, Fasset, for example, then how does that affect the local economy? You mentioned Bangladesh and Pakistan. They were forced to invest in local markets, but they didn't really invest in local markets, did they? I mean, my parents, grandparents, no one I know has ever invested in the markets. They only invested in, and a lot of them actually took it out of the country. So is taking wealth out of the country on a macro level good for the country?
This is a great question, and there's a long answer to this and from multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
First of all, I think this is the macro question that the Trump administration is asking Americans right now as well, which is why they're doing it, saying that why should American money go outside? We should be self-sufficient. And we can see the mess that it has caused. The reality is in 2025, every supply chain, every investment, and therefore every asset is connected to a number of countries. That's part and parcel. So we just talked about there's some Pakistani industrialist family that has rights to buying Apple products and bringing it via some sort of transportation
Into
to
Pakistan.
the access for Pakistanis. They in turn, let's just take this example. The freelancer now buys this iPhone, he buys this MacBook, he buys this iPad. He in turn has a contract with some tech firm in Silicon Valley,
Right.
and he's delivering his service back. So you can see, technically money is leaving the country to purchase the Apple product. Apple product comes back here. Person uses the Apple product to be able to access a service contract abroad, and the money comes back to Pakistan,
Right.
right? So, at a very very simple level, that's effectively how the world is working for almost any product, be it a car, be it a service, be it an asset. Now, to answer your question, this has come up in some of my conversations with the government here, which is that outside of, let's say, the top 10, maximum 15, at the highest limit, 20% of the population, the majority of people in Pakistan will not leave this country,
Of course.
right? For a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
One being they can't.
Yeah, the passport.
Number two, they have parents here.
Yeah.
They want their kids to grow up here. Some people are now, to be honest, even coming back from the West and saying, you know what, I want to live in Islamabad.
Trump's doing us a solid. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. So 80% will be here. Now, let's say that this 80%, they once again diversify and say, you know what, 50% of this, 50% of my wealth, I'm going to diversify into maybe America, into Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. When they make those returns, because they have no intention or they cannot leave the country, those returns come back to Pakistan,
Right.
right? When they come back to Pakistan, what happens? Some will be spent in schooling of their kids. Some will be spent to maybe open a small business. Some will be spent on property. Everything else will be spent on consumption, which is good for the economy. Now, if those gains did not come, those dollar-denominated returns did not come, there would be less money in this economy. That's at a very mathematical, economical level. Now, at a much softer level, let's say a soft power level, when people here in a country like Pakistan or Bangladesh, when they invest in America, the literacy that they gain in investing in NASDAQ is fundamental to making PSX more liquid and have more participation.
How so?
How so? Because people here, one of the reasons historically no one invests in these local markets, and I'm not just singling out of Pakistan, in any of these subcontinent countries, let's say save India, because they feel it's manipulated, it's rigged, a lot of insider trading, the regulator is not strong enough. And part of the reason is that the audience who is investing are not asking the tough questions, right? We're not holding these companies who are listed here accountable for their quarterly earnings, for the quality of their reporting. We're not checking who is insider trading, who is dumping, who is pumping. But that literacy will come when we invest in established markets. And then we also ask the same questions here. And now what's happening under this Trump administration is another phenomenon, which will be the third point, which is that American equities are in disarray. There's no future. PSX has actually done relatively well in recent times.
Yeah.
So there is a play, if we can modernize properly, that even overseas Pakistanis, people who are interested in emerging market growth, who will say, yes, in the next 5 years, I don't know about Pakistan, but I'm willing to invest in PSX from a 20-year horizon perspective, which to me would make sense, right? So all this is to say that no matter who you are, I think at the end of the day, it's actually patriotic to say, look, I'm going to be living here. I'm going to be investing just like the elites of my country invest. However, my money is coming back here. With some of that, I'm going to consume. Some of that, I'm going to make a better life for my kids. And some of that, I'm going to invest in local markets. And I'm going to participate in the local markets being more genuine, being more institutionalized, and hope that that small business that I took from my returns of Apple stock here one day becomes listed in PSX in a better environment.
That makes sense. So if I take you back to the US and we'll come back to Pakistan, but if I take you back to the US, there's a fear. Now let's say, assuming, okay, I make my account, I'm ready to invest. Now there's a fear, right? And the fear is, just for argument's sake, let's say there's Tesla and its Chinese competitors, right? Now the stock looked great a few years ago. True. Now will the tariffs stand? Will China just take over these markets with better or arguably cheaper products? Yes, better, arguable. The idea is, how do I know that this is not a seismic, shift, and that 10 years from, sometimes I wonder, with us getting into crypto and these things, are we getting in at the tail end? And I guess this has been a fear, like you mentioned, 2008, you've seen this before. So calm my nerves a little. Why is this just the same as every other time?
Look, I'm in the same boat as you. And I'll tell you, there was 2008 and there's COVID in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Both times fear ruled, everyone's mind, especially those who are not sophisticated like myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, man, I don't know when this is going to get back. I'm just going to wait it out. COVID was a great example that all of us can remember, which is that markets tanked precipitously. Everyone's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then before we all knew it, at least for people like me, markets bounced back. And not only did it bounce back, it went to all-time highs.
Yeah.
And if I'm just taking my own personal lessons from that, the lesson would be, okay, there's unparalleled fear. Whether it was 2008 or whether it was COVID, each time we thought this could be the end of the world. This could be a shift in understanding. And maybe this time in 2025, maybe it is. But what is the right thing to do in my personal recollection on both of these scenarios is invest steady, invest in a diversified way, but keep on going. Keep on going. Don't go all in.
Right.
Don't go all into one market or one asset like many people do. But if you're constantly putting that same $100, which you can afford to lose, let's say, month after month, even during this peak fear time, in the end, things will average out. And what we've historically seen over the last 100, 150 years of data that we have, you'll come out in the green, one way or the other.
And in terms of crypto now, right, there's this crypto council being made here. There's a lot of conversation going on about how all of this can sort of benefit Pakistan. Walk me through how it can. So okay, we should invest in crypto. And to be fair, there's a large population of Pakistanis. I don't know how official these documents are, but there is a lot of crypto action over here, right? Okay, there's one way to make money from it. But what would the crypto council, all of these people here, how does that benefit me in any way?
I mean, I think number one, the reason the crypto council move by this government was a phenomenal one is that signaling to the market is something that historically hasn't happened here. But if you look, I live in Dubai, and what the UAE government does phenomenally well is that even before there's something concrete, the leadership will come out and say, we're going to set up a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence.
Right.
So for example, in that example, in 2017, UAE government came out and said, we are going to set up a Ministry of AI. That's 8 years before this AI bull market. Right?
Yeah.
And what it does is that it readies the local population of UAE to say, okay, it's now the year 2017. My government, for whatever reason, had just set up a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence.
I need to get in this game.
What should I do? Yeah, I need to get in this game. If I'm a business, I need to get in. If I'm a young person in university, I need to get in. If I'm a developer, I need to think differently. And this is why, I think the move that the government made sets it forward 10 to 15 years, just with that simple move of saying there's a crypto council being formed. Because what that means is that if you're a freelancer, if you're a developer, by you now being able to openly brand yourself that I am now playing in the AI Web3 space, your salary is going to
increase,
go triple, quadruple maybe. And if you continue to upskill yourself. So I think more than any of the investment side, just by adopting, embracing, and riding the wave that the government has started, people are going to benefit, right? Just from a directionality standpoint, that this is where I can actually safely put my time towards, and I will come out a winner. Now, from an investment standpoint, I think it should give confidence that crypto has a place here, and that we shouldn't be, wrapping ourselves in fear, that we can maybe a bit more openly think about how to partake in this industry.
And let's now sort of get to the elephant in the room. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Pakistan has very strongly sort of dismissed not just crypto, stocks in general as well, investing other than real estate, because they have a halal haram conversation that comes up quite often. And in that conversation, I mean, in the last couple of years, for example, the mutual funds and the sort of percentages you were getting were pretty high, I think the highest in the region. Yet a lot of people, at least that I know, were like, no, I'm not going to do this. It's not halal. Even though it has halal funds.
I see.
And banks are feeling this pressure. They're all going Islamic. There is a pressure. We can say what we like. There is a large amount of Pakistanis who are not only involved in this because essentially they feel like it's not Islamic. So how can I sort of get around that in my head, or what are your thoughts on it?
You mean get around in the saying halal and getting around it? Is that the question?
Yeah. How can you, so for example, is it halal? Firstly, maybe it's not, right? And if it's halal, what are the sort of metrics that make it halal, or what, in your opinion?
Look, I'm not a Sharia scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but what I tell my own team and people around me is that we're actually quite blessed with the underlying ethos and framework of Islamic finance. And just to take a step back on what that means, it means that just very simple, that if you look at conventional finance, and if you look at even the bond market, right, be it the Pakistan bond market, be it the American bond market, doesn't matter. What is the bond market and the real estate market? Who do they favor the most? They favor the rich people the most. So what happens? I'm already a billionaire, millionaire sitting in this country. I can now, with a guaranteed return, just park my money in a government bond and I will get my return, right? Now, if I'm a average common person, we don't have the luxury of just parking our money in a government bond. Why? Because the returns are not enough to keep up with the rising costs of living, education, and food. Therefore, that's the fundamental reason why people in this country decide that I have to bypass the bond part of my portfolio and go straight into taking a moonshot with crypto. Right. Now, what does Islamic finance say about this? Islamic finance says, I don't care. Fundamentally, what does it say? It's that I don't care if you're a rich person or a poor person or a common person. Whoever you are, you have to be able to be willing to take a risk to make a return.
Right.
Meaning that if I'm a rich person, now let's look at it from Islamic finance lens. I'm a rich person. Bonds are not allowed, right? I am now forced to put my money into a small business, into some sort of investment grade asset, some sort of industry, some sort of venture capital, some sort of startup. And what does that do? Just be by myself taking that risk versus parking it into a government wallet. I'm creating jobs, I'm creating IP, I'm creating innovation, and I'm forced to make my return like that.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what Islamic finance is saying. Right now, what's happened, and a lot of, at least definitely a part of the blame is with Sharia scholars, quite frankly, is that we have moved away from the ethos and we have gone into the era of, to a certain degree, rubber stamping. And even if you don't want to make the allegation that much, we have not held our Sharia stamp to a high enough regard to those products to say, wait a minute, are you catering to protecting rich people's wealth? Or are you making products that force all people to take a risk that is for the betterment of this economy? So for example, in Pakistan's case, there's a government mandate 2027, everything is to be Sharia compliant Islamic. But part of that government mandate and the definition of Islamic finance should be that as we go Islamic, we force the elites, those people who have disposable income, to take more risk.
Okay.
Right? So from that perspective, right, because that's the only, as far as my voice goes in this equation, I think that's a great thing. Right?
Why?
It's a fundamental thing because, number one, that ethos would make the world a better place. That ethos of rich people being forced to take more risk would spur investment in Pakistan, create more jobs, create more innovation, and ultimately it would be good for the average person. Right? And even outside of that, being able to do anything in life with an intention to please God, follow an ethos, and make the world a better place, simply, honestly, man, just makes someone feel better, right? To be honest, it makes you feel better versus saying, I don't know if this is halal or haram, but I'm going to I don't care who you are, you don't necessarily feel good at that point in time, right? So by being able to bring that entire ethos, that entire understanding together, I think it genuinely makes for a more wholesome way of spending your money.
Makes sense. I was talking to someone in your team right now, a little while ago, and he was telling me that you guys were also surprised at how quickly the market for Fasset grew in Pakistan and how many people were sort of getting on this investment train. From an outside standpoint, right? Yeah, you live in the Middle East. You've seen the rise in the UAE. You work with their sort of government as well. So to us, it's doom and gloom, right? The local perspective right now is not, it's probably at its lowest that I've seen. Maybe it's at its lowest ever. Multitude of factors behind that. But I wanted to sort of understand from your point of view, from a macro lens, from an understanding of markets, from seeing how your product has sort of integrated into this market. Is Pakistan, as we've almost given up, right? And that's an unfortunate thing. But do you sometimes think that we're missing the point, or is it one of those things where no, there is genuine issues? Because when I hear things like what your team was mentioning, I wonder, okay, so there are people, it's not just the whole, there's black money, everybody's lying, they've hid it under their forget that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there are smart young people who are aware of, it's not like we're living in the medieval times here as we're made to believe, and people are all hungry and dying, and then even those with money are just wasting it, etc., etc. There's a young population that's looking to change their narrative. But I wanted to understand from a holistic standpoint, when you see Pakistan, then this includes the government, this includes our population crisis, our economic problems. Where do you sort of see Pakistan in 5, 10, 15 years?
I mean, I'll tell you, I just finished with my own team, and I was telling them that I would say the population in Pakistan genuinely is probably one of the most talented populations from the perspective of the type of world that we are entering right now. And it really just comes down to two things in my mind, that there's a significant population here that, leave aside the fundamentals of English speaking, tech savvy, well-read, connected to the world. There's two fundamentals that I feel like Pakistan has, which is that they have a great balance of tech skills, but also complemented by amazing creativity.
Okay.
Right. And I grew up in a place like this where these two things converged. And that place is called California. You know what I mean? So rarely, I've been all over the world, rarely do you get both. Right? Some markets will be extremely creative from a literature, from a let's say, an arts perspective.
Yeah.
Some markets will be amazing from a very tech perspective, like a China. But tech plus creativity creates innovation. Each one on its own doesn't have a multiplier effect, but when you combine it, it's phenomenal. Pakistan has that. Where I think is just keeping this from booming is I feel that, leave aside the government, I feel that people are resigned to what the government does, which to me is a big miss by young people here. Because we finally live in a time where, man, I don't care who the government is. Honestly, I don't care who the government is. Everyone individually, if they put their heart, mind, and soul and discipline and energy in with a positive, optimistic attitude, you can succeed. And Pakistanis have done that, right? I mean, time and time again. But I feel like and that's why even when we're hiring in Pakistan, it's hard to find someone who is not skeptical. They'll be the most talented person ever. And it's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
But because of the mood that has permeated the atmosphere, everyone, even they come to Fasset, will have a big win, and they'll be like, Raafi, are we going to do another win after this?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, just celebrate. We just won right now. Right? If we can win this time, we can win again. But don't be skeptical. Right?
Yeah.
But I understand where it comes from.
Yeah, I think it's decades of fear and
that's right.
Understand, and
That's
also so for example, when I hear of a Fasset, this is not to say Fasset anything. You mentioned the PSX, right? So we've been hopeful and then not won again. We've been conned a lot. I think that's been one of the bigger problems, right? A lot of people don't invest in Pakistan because I feel like, even in real estate, people are like, oh, real estate is a sure thing. I will show you 9 out of 10 real estate investors at a smaller level. When you're rich, everything is easier, right? But I'm talking about at a lower level, filing kharidna is a thing here, right? There's so many people who have lost their livelihoods just betting on the wrong things. But my last question, in terms of not really investing, but investing in yourself, Pakistanis, we've been told a lot, tech is the future. We could be like India. We could be like Bangladesh. Our sort of education system is obviously not where it should be. Our, job market is not where it should be. So we're looking internationally. We're starting working Fiverr, freelancer, etc. What can a Pakistani do now, right? There's a lot of fear. Again, I was talking to one of your employees before this podcast, and he was talking to me about how AI is taking over everything. So, this podcast, it can be done on AI. The articles we write on our website, I'm part of a few other businesses. All of them are really, I could do this without anybody, right? It's the kind of situation. Half the time you're almost employing people just because, well, it would be weird if you didn't. But in that world where we're being replaced, and there are so many of us doing not, so when people say, oh, there'll be like these very technical, creative, strategic jobs in the future, but we're at the lower level. Let's be real, right? Like us Pakistanis, we're not doing the sexy stuff. We're doing the relatively non-sexy stuff. So what happens to us and what should we do?
I think there's some skills that will never be replaced. And it's important that if you're a young person now, you got to adopt those skills before all other skills. And the funny thing about those skills is that you really don't need, they're not skills. It's just mindset. So creativity, that's never going to be replaced by AI. 100,000%. In fact, those who use AI the best are the ones who are bringing innate creativity. Hard work, discipline, resilience, AI doesn't do that either, right? So someone who is hardworking, disciplined, and resilient, right, will find a way. Will find a way to succeed. And then the last thing, you make a good point that Pakistanis are not doing the star-studded side of the work, but that too is a mindset thing. And I was just saying this to my team, is that if there's a guy in Silicon Valley using AI that's going to put 8 hours a day, and there's going to be a guy in Islamabad here putting 8 hours a day. The guy in Silicon Valley, the only difference is he probably is dropped out from university. Our guy probably, you're saying that his education wasn't great. But the only difference is that guy from day one has thought, I'm going to spend this 8 hours a day and I'm going to make the number one product that the world has ever seen. And our guy is thinking, I'm going to work on this product and I'm going to try to go on Fiverr.com and find 5 buyers for it. That's it. Bro, that is it. Now, if our guy says, I'm going to make the number one product, no, not in Pakistan, not in the subcontinent, not for Dubai, but for the world, his 8 hours and that guy's 8 hours is the same. They're both using ChatGPT. You know what I mean, bro? But it's just mindset.
Yeah.
It's just mindset.
No, that's right.
And all it takes is 5 to 6 examples of people and companies that come from Pakistan and show that it can be done to make a difference. And there's already a few. So, when CZ came yesterday and there's a big hoo-ha, I would hope that the government also says, you know what? Let us focus our efforts to find 5 or 6 homegrown Pakistanis who have world number one mindset. Same thing playing the cricket team, right?
Yeah.
Right. Cricket's actually one of the only areas in a country like Pakistan or Bangladesh where a kid grows up saying, you know what? I can be number one. And you can see the impact that it makes.
Yeah.
But name me another sector where someone grows up saying, I'm going to be number one.
Yeah.
Never, bro.
Yeah, true. That makes sense.
The mindset is, I'm going to be just good enough to get a job in Dubai.
Yeah, fair enough. But I don't know
But
if you
same
watch...
level effort.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know if you watch cricket.
I'm trying to be nice.
Right now, actually, we do have a world number one. He's the one bringing us down. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was there was a lot to learn here. Absolute pleasure. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed our content, please do subscribe to our channel, and we will see you for the next podcast.